Okay, a question that I get from a ton of you is, where do I start if I want to start a podcast? And I love when answers are simpler than we expect them to be. So I want to tell you about a resource that's changed the game for us with our podcast, and that is Spotify for Podcasters. If you want to start your own podcast, Spotify has a platform that makes it so easy. You upload your episodes and then Spotify actually distributes it everywhere onto all platforms and even helps you earn money so that it can be profitable for you and a blessing for you, your family, your people. Spotify for Podcasters lets you record and edit your podcast literally from your phone or your computer. So if you don't have a fancy setup, it's okay. You can immediately get started today. Then again, you distribute it to Spotify and everywhere else that podcasts are available. You can also do video podcasts, which sounds like a dream to me. And when you want to take conversations with your people to the next level, you can do Q&A and polls, all sorts of fun things. You can earn money with ads and podcast subscriptions, or you can just get started using what you've got for the good of others and the glory of God. Check out Spotify for Podcasters. I use it. I love it. I highly recommend it. Download the Spotify for Podcasters app. I have it on my phone, highly suggest, or go to spotify.com/podcasters to get started today.
Hey friends, you're listening to the Go and Tell Gals podcast, and I'm your host, Jess Conlon. In most of our episodes, we'll have a guest, a woman who is running on mission right where she's at. We pray this podcast leaves you encouraged and spurred on to go and tell the good news. Hey gals, today we have a rare repeat guest. We haven't really made it to the place where we're having guests on twice because we're just still working through a long list of women we want to speak with. But I'm saying, when we have somebody on twice, take note, because that means I am eager to talk to them and eager to hear what they have to share. And I think you are too. Today we have Harper Nichols, who is a poet, an author, an artist. I'm blessed to call her a friend, and I know that you guys are going to be encouraged and grateful for this episode too. Enjoy. Hey friends, I am so excited about today's episode. We are talking with the incredible Harper Nichols, who is now a veteran to the Go and Tell Gals podcast. Hey, we're so grateful you're here. Thank you so much.
Oh, well, I'm honored to be here as well. It's so good to be back.
Listen, so much has shifted since the last time we talked. So our last conversation was right before you were going to embark on motherhood, this incredible new season of mission. But in the midst of that, you've also published a book. So just catch us up. How's life been? What's it look like right now?
Yes. What does life look like right now? It's so surreal that so much time has passed. And yes, motherhood, it's definitely changed me in all the best ways. And of the many things that it's taught me, the biggest thing is just being present and being more present. And I honestly thought I had a pretty good handle on that before. But yeah, I learned I had a long way to go. Just being in the moment and not feeling like I have to plan everything out. And I honestly, as somebody who didn't have like a ton of kids in my life prior to having a child, like I truly believe that even if you don't have a child, like at home in your house, like kids in general can just really teach you so much about just being present. And it's impacted my daily life, my work life. And that's been amazing. And I was working on the book while I was pregnant, which that was very difficult. Yeah. And I'm already working on the next book right now. And I'm like, wow, like I have definitely have more energy than I had last time. Yeah. Even though I'm definitely still sleep deprived. So baby's 8 months now. He's doing well. He's chilling with the grandparents right now. Today's actually my birthday. I'm 30 today.
Stop! That's
so
incredible.
That. I honestly keep forgetting. I'm like, is this what happens when you turn 30? You just forget things all the time.
Yes,
like, literally,
it is.
This is like the third time. It's 10 a.m. where I am, and this is already the third time today where I'm like, whoa, it's my birthday.
Oh,
I'll just start doing something else, and I just forget.
I love it. I love it.
That's why. That's what I've been up to.
I love it. That's amazing. Okay, writing the book while pregnant. So I can barely imagine what that would have been like. Part of me imagines that it is probably, I mean, fruitful is an interesting word, but like a really fruitful and interesting season to be birthing so many things, to be growing so many things. And tell us about the book. I mean, how similar is it to the work you've been doing? Does it feel like an extension of that? Does it feel like something new?
Yes, I feel like extension is just the right word. So I share lots of artwork and poetry and prose writings on social media and all around different places. Yeah. And I love creating for that platform, for that space. However, just because of the nature of technology and everything being so quick, a lot of times, like, I'll just sort of like, as I'm writing, even as I'm writing for other people and sending them things that I wrote, I'll sometimes like leave things off because I'm just like, I think this is just like a little bit deeper. Like this just needs to be in a space where someone can like really hold this in their hand and sit with it, you know? And that's one of like the biggest challenges that I have with social media in particular right now is because I'm just like, gosh, there are times where I want to go deeper, when I want to talk about something more specifically. And I'm just like, you know, in this context of like, okay, the average person is just like I do, like just scrolling through and not really holding it like you would when you're reading a book. Yeah. I was just like, how do you write for those different spaces? So I would say that this book is honestly like, the Instagram caption limit is like 2,000 characters or something. I was like, I would say that this right here, this book is, those next 2,000 characters of all of the posts. So yeah, that's kind of how the book came to be, because I honestly couldn't figure out how to write a book. I was just like, I don't know how to do this.
I love it.
I was like, sounds great. And I've talked about writing a book for a very long time. And now that the opportunity is here and I'm super pregnant and tired all the time and I'm supposed to deliver this book, what do I do? So I went back through my Google Docs and I have like a Google Doc for every day where I just go out and just write all the things. Yeah. And I just went and I found lots of things that I just hadn't shared because I was just like, I'm not sure if I did share that yet. So yeah, that's essentially what the book is. So it definitely, for me, I have so much peace with that because it just represents like a season in my life where I was just doing what I could and trying to be present and work with the energy and time that I had. And it ended up being something that I'm really proud of. So yeah.
I love it. I love it. Well, in case you don't know what the book is called or what it's about, it's called All Along You Were Blooming, Thoughts for Boundless Living, which is just about the most beautiful thing I've ever heard. So here's something I want to touch on about what you just mentioned. I go and tell gals in our coaching, in all kinds of things that we do, we focus on these sort of like 6 areas: quitting, trying to be our ideal selves, focusing on who we're meant to serve, using the gifts we've been given, fighting fear with faith, catching a God-sized vision, and making abundant moves. Like we do those things over and over again. We talk about those things over and over again. And so something I know about you that I've heard you talk about and that I don't think a lot of people know is the way you write poems and how so specifically often you're writing them for someone, maybe even somebody you don't know. So I've heard you talk a little bit about this, about the Google Docs and Instagram, but will you share just a little bit more about like what that process looks like poetry wise?
Yeah. So a few years ago, I realized that, and I've always felt like I was and have been a creative person and artist in many different capacities. However, just the whole creative block thing and imposter syndrome and self-doubt, all the things often overwhelms me. And I was in a place where I was 26 and I was just like, I gotta figure something out because like I feel I keep hitting walls. And I was like, what is the thing that helps me keep writing and keep going and keep creating? And I realized it was when other people told me their stories. For some reason, I couldn't get over the process of like getting out of my own head and writing for my own story. So it's been through hearing other people's stories that I felt like encouraged to keep writing and to keep going. So in October of 2017, I actually just posted on my Instagram, I'll just do this literally. I'll just write from one person at a time. And I shared that. I was like, hey, if you would like for me to write a poem for you or make some art for you and your story, like I will gladly write something for you because I was like, I love to create and I love to hear people's stories. So it was just kind of a way of bridging that gap between those two. And this was in October of 2017. And I thought that maybe I would do it for a week or two, but here we are and I'm still doing it. And so typically it used to be every day, but now it's about usually once a week, sometimes twice a week.
Yeah.
And I just sit in front of my email inbox and my Instagram DMs and I just open a message and I just start writing to that person. And recently I've started going really old school and I put out my mailing address and I said, hey, send me letters. And I've been responding to letters now. And that's been really cool. So yeah, it's just for me, something ignites, something like clicks when I'm out of my head and I'm thinking about someone else. And for me, it's like, I didn't articulate it this way when I first started, but now I know it just comes back to those moments where you're realizing this is so much bigger than me. Like those are the moments where I get out of my head when I'm confronted with the reality that like, hey, look, I know you're in your head all the time. I know you are one person in one body, but you are part of a greater body. You're a part of a greater story. And yeah, it's those moments where I just feel encouraged to create. So that's how I do it. I literally just open the message and I just start responding to the person. Yeah. Like I said, I've been doing letters now and that's just been another whole level. I'll report back on that later. Just started on that. Yeah. Yeah. It's just, and the thing is, it's like, it's kind of like turning art to a conversation and just making it about literally writing someone a letter. And yeah, so that's a little bit of what I do.
Well, here's why I love it so much is it's because so many women ask, like, I would perceive that a lot of women, a lot of men might ask, like, how do I write poetry like Morgan Harper Nichols? How do I get motivated and inspired like she does? And the answer is people.
Yes.
The answer is loving people well. The answer is even like, how do I know, like, in what ways to use my gifts? How do I know what to say? The answer is you listen. You listen to what their pain points are. You listen to what's going on in their life. And that's the answer for like so much of it. How do I start this business? How do I write this book? How do I, all of it. You care about people and you listen to what their pain points are and then you try to serve them. And
absolutely. And I totally agree with that. And also within that, I've really found as I started to write for people, the people that I'm writing for most of the time, like, don't have a bunch of followers. Yeah. They're not like, I don't know, like if you've ever done this or anyone listening's ever done this, where you have this dream where you have something and you're like, oh, I would like to be able to work with that kind of person or collaborate with them or that kind of organization. And I just kind of accidentally end up bypassing all of that. And I was just like, I'm just going to make things for what most people might consider ordinary everyday people. They're not ordinary people. Like everyone's extraordinary in their own way. However, we do live in this world where blue check marks and follower counts, where people measure people's worth based on that. And even beyond social media, we do that in terms of like how much money people make or how much in charge they are. Like if they're an executive or a leader, we might treat them differently. So I was just like, you know what? I'm just going to set all that aside. Like at the time when I started, I still had like some dreams in terms of like, oh, I would really like to collaborate with this kind of thing or do this, but I don't really know how to get there. So, you know, I didn't really overcome it. I just kind of sat it aside and I was just like, you know what? I'm just going to focus on people that probably just feel like I feel. And they just feel so ordinary, so small, insignificant, like their voice doesn't matter. And I'm like, there's probably 2 or 3 people out there who feel that way. And interestingly enough, like the more I just started focusing on like, what did I need to hear at age 14? What did I need to hear at 17? What did I need to hear the summer I was 17? What did I need to hear that winter? The more I started going through all those little details of what was already here in front of me through my own story and my own experiences, like the more the people started to come. Like, but I was trying to like reach as many people as possible and to do the thing that would make this a sustainable thing, you know, I would have little moments of like, okay, that was cool. But yeah, going deeper, that's been a big phrase for me lately. And yeah, I think we all have opportunities to go deeper, and it's a hard thing. It's I feel like it's a struggle sometimes to think like, oh my gosh, I talk to these people every single day. What can we possibly say that's new? You know, what can possibly be interesting or creative or exciting here? But I think that there is. I think that there's something to the ordinary, and the extraordinary is revealed through that. So yeah,
I love it. So good. So when you say that, like, I feel like we all do get to that sticking point of like, I need to go deeper.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Let's say you get to that pain point. What do you do?
You know, I'm just gonna go by what kind of happens for me.
Yeah.
It's just. And what's happening for me even now, pay attention to the moments where you start experiencing peace or just something a little different. So for me, early on, that was when I started to write for people's stories and share. I was also doing artwork because I've always just felt that way about like poetry. I was always like, I see paintings when I'm reading this. Like, I just want to paint. I was like, I don't even know if this is a thing. I just want to do it. And as I started doing this, I started losing followers. And I remember in that moment, and it wasn't even like, oh, we hate you. Why are you doing this? It was just like, people were like, you know, they just didn't want to see my random craft projects, like as I was figuring them out. And I was just like, you know what? I don't really care. Yeah. It was like the first moment where I could see like a visible, like people just sort of like, okay, I'm checking out of this. Like, I'm not really signing up for that. And I was at peace with it. So I was like, that's new. Like, that was new. Like, I'm 30 today. So, and I grew up with Instagram. Like, in terms of my 20s, Instagram started when I was 20 years old. And I was like, I can remember specific times when like certain people unfollowed me. And I was like, oh, what does this mean? Yeah. And I was like, whoa, I don't feel that way right now. I'm like, I don't know what this is, but this is different. So I think that that's the first big thing, is noticing what's different. It's like, I felt a little bit more excited today, or maybe you even felt a little bit more nervous, or just notice like what changes and just stay present to that.
Okay. What's challenging in this particular season? You've had the book come out. It's incredible. It just came out a few weeks ago. You're in the thick of writing the next book, raising the baby you were pregnant with. What's been the challenge in this season, and how is God meeting you in that?
You know, this is a great question to ask now, because before this call, I just left my appointment with my therapist. So I am well equipped to answer this question. So yeah, I just watched the other day. I had heard people mention it before, and I just got around to watching this documentary on, I always say the band name wrong. It's either Avett Brothers or Avett Brothers. I'm not sure.
Lord, I would not know. I'm the least of the cool kids. Trust me.
Well, they're brothers, and they were kind of like, you know, documenting a documentary. And at the end, I don't want to spoil it, but he says something in the documentary that just really stood out to me. And he said that it's strange to be celebrated for, and he's referring to his music, it's strange to be celebrated for the mining of the soul.
Mm-hmm.
And when I heard that, I was like, yep, that's how I feel. So I'm definitely in a place where I'm very grateful for the book being out there. And the more I'm talking about it, you know, and I'm so grateful for this experience to be able to talk about the book.
Yeah.
The more I talk about it, and the more I just did a poetry reading last weekend before last, and then I'm doing 2 this week. And the more I read through these pieces, I'm like, whoa, like there's a lot of my story in here that maybe I didn't even realize I was writing about.
Yeah.
And that does create like enormous amount of pressure sometimes.
Yeah.
Just like, whoa, did I really put that in writing, like in a book for other people to read in their house? Like,
yeah,
I did that. Like, was that too much? Did I share too much? Like, was that not polished enough? That's a big thing, is just dealing with that. So yeah, I would say that for me, it's really just learning how to be at peace with what I may perceive as imperfections with a book, or, oh, that wasn't my best, or maybe I should have been more guarded, or maybe I should have said more of this or said more of that. And just being like, not just okay with the fact that something I made exists, but like being grateful for it, and also like holding space for it. It's like, yeah, in order for this book to happen, like I did have to pull from the moments in my life. I did have to pull from the valley, and that's okay, because God is with me in the mountains and the valleys, and I don't just have to like make it all a mountain, you know.
Good.
It's all part of the landscape. And yeah, so that's just sort of somewhat of a little self-chat.
I love
Something
it.
I'm actively telling myself right now. So yeah.
I love it. It's so good. Hey, we're crazy grateful for you, Morgan. I mean, your art is giving words to what our generation is feeling and perceiving and walking through. And we're just wildly grateful for your art, but your leadership too, how you lead us to new places with it. So thank you so much. One last question, and that is, how can we be praying for you?
I would say just, I'm like looking at my journal. I'm like, what has been going on?
Yes.
I would just say prayer for extending grace to myself that I extend to others. And just being, I tend to, whether it's friends or people I just met, I'm like, it's all right. Like, that was really tough. Like, feel that. Like, I understand. But then when I go to get to myself, I'm like, oh, no, you got to button that up. You got to fix that, real fast. And yeah, just realizing that it's okay. And yeah, so I guess just prayers for the journey through the highs and the lows, and learning how to experience grace and encounter grace and all of that.
That's so good. You've got it. We're on your team. We're grateful for you, Morgan. Thank you for your time, and thank you for your work.
Thank you. Oh, thank you so much.